complicated the whole tax reform conversation by having that fall apart and not having somewhere between $300 to $500 billion in savings. That's real money even in Washington. So I think what we have here is a problem where you see the president, and there's some talk, Mike Mulvaney and some others sometimes talk about maybe we need to actually revisit repealing Obamacare again so that we can get that in the right order we wanted it. I don't see how that can really happen. But look, nobody can predict what's going on in Washington right now very well, even the timing of it.
Because the Treasury Secretary said that somehow you basically have to come up with $1 trillion to fund this kind of tax reform, or it will not be as big as promised.
Well, that's why they're talking about that border adjustment tax, which is sort of like, as I understand it, and they might have a better idea, but is a tax on everything except exports, basically, and which is supposed to raise $1 trillion. When we talk about the politics of this issue, we can talk about why I think that could be problematic, but it would raise a tremendous amount of money. To some degree, if you have lower middle income people getting tax cuts are more likely to spend it because they'll need to spend it. I think that's problematic as far as helping the overall economy, because I sort of disagree. I think the stated goal is not to help the lower income and poor, it's to help the economy, which helps everybody, and a rising tide lifts all boats. So the problem is that low income people don't really pay any income taxes, and middle income people pay a small amount of taxes. The problem with this, and the political problem, is that it's the wealthy in the country pay most of the income taxes. When we're talking about income taxes, the wealthy pay most of it. So any cuts in the income tax that could in any way goose the economy are going to benefit the wealthy more, and then that creates a whole political turmoil issue. When you're talking about capital gains cuts and that sort of thing, I think a lot of it depends on the attitude towards the economy at the time. For some companies, they might want to squirrel it away, look for investments when they feel things are safer. But if they feel sort of confident in the direction that the economy is going, they are much more likely to reinvest it. I think you have two main political realities with facing tax reform being successful. Number one is the tax code itself is a veritable cornucopia of special interests and winners and losers. And so anytime you change that dynamic at all, you're going to have the army of lobbyists and the potential special interest groups at you. So that's one problem. The other problem is that the divisions within the Republican caucus in the House that we saw revealed during the Obamacare repeal failure are going to be almost the exact same still in the tax reform one. Particularly, the Freedom Caucus is not going to accept something that's not revenue neutral.
Rod, any predictions in terms of whether it's going to get done this year?
So it'd have to be done by August. I would give it better than 50% chance. I mean, I'm just a talking head from a distance here, but with the finger on the pulse there, I think better than 50% chance because Trump likes to win, and he doesn't have a big win through Congress yet.
Join us right now for final thoughts, and Rod, I'll give you the first shot at it.
I would love to see tax reform done in a way that is good for the economy, because something that's good for the economy is going to be good for most Americans, and it's going to be good for the federal revenue coffers. So I would like to see tax reform done the right way. I feel like, however, that it really needs to be attached to some form of responsible entitlement reform. And I'm not saying the big one because that's too much to tackle all at once. But if you don't do that, you could end up impacting the deficit that we've been talking about. And if we don't have deficit reduction of some sort going forward, we're getting into a problem that we're all going to be concerned about for our children and grandchildren.